Action points. A free online risk scoring app predicts severe hypoglycemia and major adverse cardiovascular events MACE risk in type 2 diabetes, according to a post-hoc analysis of the randomized DEVOTE trial that compared different insulins. Evidence supports associations between higher day-to-day fasting glycemic variability and increased risks of severe hypoglycemia and all-cause mortality, but it is unclear if severe hypoglycemia serves as a risk marker for adverse events or there is a direct causal effect. Lisbon, an online risk scoring tool, predicts severe hypoglycemia and major adverse cardiovascular event MACE risk in type 2 diabetes, according to a post-hoc analysis of the DEVOTE trial. The free app ranks patients as moderate to very high cardiovascular risk and gives a percentage for likelihood of severe hypoglycemia risk within the next 2 years based on age, hemoglobin A1C, duration of diabetes, gender, and diabetes treatment, insulin-naive, basal insulin-only, or basal bolus insulin. For MACE, the lowest quartile of risk, dubbed medium, was associated with about a 50% increase through to the highest risk category in people receiving insulin degludec, while incidence was closer to doubled across that range of scores for people on insulin glargine lantus in the trial data. External validation of the risk score on the leader trial data from a similar diabetes population not treated with insulin showed a roughly tenfold increase in risk of severe hypoglycemia from the lowest to highest scores. John Booz, MD, PhD, of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, reported at the European Association for the Study of Diabetes meeting here. Patients at high risk need extra attention and support, Booz said. We hope this app will be useful to patients. Apps to identify high-risk patients are a great idea, as detection and prevention of hypoglycemia in type 2 diabetes is not given the attention it deserves, said Martin Rutter, MD, of the University of Manchester in England, who served as study discussant at the session and wrote an editorial to accompany the papers, which were published simultaneously in Diabetologia. But if I'm being honest, he told the audience, it seems premature to target severe hypoglycemia, given the uncertainty of a causal relationship to outcomes or evidence suggesting that targeting it would improve those outcomes. It seems implausible that a single episode of severe hypoglycemia could impact 1-year mortality, and it's more likely a marker of repeated less severe or unrecorded hypoglycemia, he suggested. He called residual confounding from factors like frailty the main problem with the observational data. Only further trials can guide clinicians on whether to target glucose variability, Rutter concluded. Victor Georgens, MD, a former executive director of EASD, argued that patient education should take first place. The tool is useless until you focus on the proper treatment and education of the patients, he said. Then, following education, if you analyze who is prone to severe hypoglycemia, then you can identify risk. Secondary price-specified analyses of DEVOTE were also presented at the EASD session, affirming that severe hypoglycemia was associated with day-to-day glycemic variability, and both appeared to impact all-cause mortality, while neither independently predicted major adverse cardiovascular events in type 2 diabetes. Main results of the DEVOTE trial previously showed insulin degludec was non-inferior to insulin glargine in 7,637 high cardiovascular risk type 2 diabetes patients. Day-to-day fasting glycemic variability comparing standard deviations of pre-breakfast self-measured blood glucose measurements was significantly associated with severe hypoglycemia HR 3.20 to 4.15, for a doubling of variability such as going from 1 to 2 standard deviations in the most fully adjusted models, and all-cause mortality HR 1.33 to 1.53. Adjustment for overall glycemic control, as reflected by baseline current hemoglobin A1C, eliminated the association with MACE. Bernard Zinman, MD, of Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto, reported at the session. People who had severe hypoglycemia in the trial were not at significantly higher risk of MACE HR 1.38, 95% C 0.96, 1.96, but were at higher risk of death from any cause compared with those who had no episodes HR 2.51, 95% C 1.79, 3.50. The association between severe hypoglycemia and all-cause mortality was maintained after adjustment for age, sex, HbA1c, BMI, diabetes, duration, insulin regimen, hepatic impairment, renal status and cardiovascular risk group. Thomas Pieber, MD, of the Medical University of Graz, Austria, reported. Rutter cautioned that the short duration of the trial resulted in limited statistical power for some analyses, particularly MACE. The trial and secondary analyses were sponsored and funded by Novo Nordisk. Booz reported receiving contracted consulting fees paid to his institution, and travel support from Novo Nordisk, Eli Lilly, GE Dynamics, Elsilix, Merck, Metavention, VTV Pharma, Phasbio, AstraZeneca, Dance Biopharm, Sanofi, Lexicon Pharmaceuticals, Orexogen, Takeda, Adocia, Roche, Novatag, Shenzhen Hitide, Fractal and Dexcom. Grant support from Eli Lilly, Bristol Myers Squibb, GE Dynamics, Merck, Phasbio, AstraZeneca, Medtronic, Minimed, Sanofi, Johnson & Johnson, Andromeda, Boehringer Ingelheim, GlaxoSmithKline, Macrogenics, Intarcia Therapeutics, Lexicon Pharmaceuticals, Cyan Eurostem, Orexogen, Takeda, Thericos and Bayer. He also reports receiving fees and holding stock options in Phasbio and Insulin Algorithms. He also reports serving on the board of the AstraZeneca Healthcare Foundation. Pieber disclosed he has received research support from Novo Nordisk and AstraZeneca paid directly to the Medical University of Graz, personal fees as a consultant from AstraZeneca, Bristol Myers Squibb, Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk and Roche Diabetes Care. He is also the Chief Scientific Officer of CBMED Center for Biomarker Research in Medicine, a public-funded biomarker research company. Zinman disclosed having received grant support from Boehringer Ingelheim, AstraZeneca and Novo Nordisk and consulting fees from AstraZeneca, Boehringer Ingelheim, Eli Lilly, Janssen, Merck, Novo Nordisk and Sanofi. Rutter disclosed relationships with Novo Nordisk, Essentia, Cell Catapult, and Roche Diabetes Care. 20170915T163000400